Hello my friends, in today's video we will take a look at Fujifilm X-F23mm F1.4 LMWR. This is Fujifilm's latest 35mm equivalent prime lens. It was designed with a 40MP X-H2 HR sensor in mind, so it should be able to provide excellent optical performance. In this video we will take a look at the performance of 23mm F1.4 with X-H2 and X-T5 to find out whether it is a good companion for Fujifilm's high-resolution cameras. As I've explained before, 35mm is a very versatile and neutral focal length. It offers a balance between wide field of view and emphasis on the subject. It is useful for anything from landscapes and cities to environmental portraits and even product photography. Most people like 35mm focal length for its versatility, but there are also people who find it somewhat boring. I am in the first group. F1.4 on APS-C at this focal length offers some degree of subject separation, and it also makes it suitable for low light use. 23mm RLMWR is 77.8mm long and it weighs 375 grams. Those are pretty standard numbers for this type of lens, so it definitely is compact and very travel friendly. It is also a great match for the X-T5. The whole combination is not too front heavy and it is very comfortable to use even with that small grip. It works even better with the X-H2 or X-H2S. It is very well balanced and there is enough room between the grip and the lens. The build quality is excellent, much like with other RLMWR lenses. The whole construction is metal, including both rings, and filter thread is also metal. It is definitely a very well made and durable lens. It is weather sealed, so there is a rubber gasket around the mount. The mount is metal as well, of course. A lens hood is included in the box, but I forgot to ask for it, so I can't show it to you. It has a standard 58mm filter thread. It is a common size, but I would still suggest getting a 58 to 67mm step-up ring and using 67mm filters. You will be able to use those on a wider variety of lenses. Freewell actually makes their excellent variable ND filter in 58mm version, so that is definitely an option. Regarding the control elements, there is the aperture ring and focusing ring. The aperture ring has clicks and it is relatively easy to move. It is my preferred way of controlling the aperture, but if you prefer controls in camera, you can set it to A position. There is also a lock that you need to press to engage or disengage it. The aperture ring is wide enough and very smooth. It can be set to linear or non-linear response in the camera menu, and you can also adjust the angle or the speed of the ring. I greatly appreciate that. I was able to get very smooth focus pulls with this lens very easily. So how about the optical qualities? As I mentioned, I have tested this lens with a 40MP X-H2 HR sensor in Fujifilm X-H2. This sensor is extremely demanding when it comes to the optical quality, so let's see how it works together. The central sharpness at f1.4 is as good as possible with 40MP sensor on this scene. It can't get any better than this. f2 looks the same. f2.8 to f8 looks identical. The contrast is also great and I don't really see any chromatic aberration at all. The contrast starts to decrease at f11, but it is still fine. The corner sharpness at f1.4 is again excellent. The resolution itself is still maximal, much like in the center of the frame. There is some noise though, we will get back to that later. There is also a tiny bit of chromatic aberration. At f2, the corner sharpness is as good as possible with great resolution, contrast, and pretty much no chromatic aberration. The corner sharpness stays the same from f2 to f8. There is a significant decrease of contrast at f11. Overall, the optical qualities of this lens are excellent. You will get perfect image quality in the center of the frame from f1.4 to f8. The only thing keeping it from being optically perfect is that noise in the corners at f1.4. Despite that, I can say that this is one of the best crop lenses that I've ever tested. The real-world images obviously look great as well. I generally like the combination of the latest RLMWR primes with X-H2 and Fujifilm colors. I would say that these lenses have very nice optical character. If you like to use Fujifilm's film simulations, those work great with this lens and sensor combination as well. The amount of distortion is actually pretty significant, but I have definitely seen worse. The vignetting is also pretty strong at f1.4. It is a lot better at f2, f2.8, and it completely disappears around f4. Profile corrections will compensate for both, of course. It only affects the image quality in the corners at f1.4, so that is not that big of a deal. The minimum focus distance is 19 cm, which translates to 0.2 times magnification. That is an average value for this type of lens. The image quality at the minimum focus distance is fantastic right from f1.4 with minimal amount of chromatic aberration. That makes it a very solid semi-macro lens. The bokeh is very pleasant. At f1.4 you can get pretty significant separation as long as the subject is relatively close. It has 9 aperture blades and I would say that the rendition of bokeh is above average. It can even handle busier backgrounds pretty well. The stills autofocus is great. It is among the fastest lenses that I have tested on the X-H2. Focus acquisition is basically instant, it is very accurate and there is no hunting. Low light and backlit subjects are not an issue either. In video it is as good as the camera allows it. The speed and accuracy is not an issue with both X-H2 and X-T5. The smoothness depends on the situation and the settings. A very important difference in comparison to the 18mm version is that the focusing motor on 23mm RLMWR is very silent. You can only hear it if you put the lens very close to your ear. This lens is not stabilized, but at 35mm equivalent, the in-body image stabilization in both X-H2 and X-T5 is more than sufficient. In stills mode you can go pretty low with the shutter speed and still get very solid sharpness. It works just as well in video. Static shots and pointing the camera around are very stable. The amount of focus breathing is pretty low. Some amount is visible, but it shouldn't ruin your focus pulse. To sum up, Fujifilm X-F23mm F1.4 RLMWR is another Fujifilm lens that can match the capabilities of X-Trans5 cameras. It offers great optical qualities right from f1.4. The only optical imperfection is a bit of noise in the corners at f1.4. Also worth mentioning is a great image quality at the minimum focus distance. Apart from that noise at f1.4, it is pretty much optically perfect. The build quality is great, it is compact and weather sealed. The autofocus is as good as the camera allows it, so it is definitely not a limiting factor. An important finding is that the autofocus is very silent. Overall, I don't really have anything to complain about. It has met my expectations, which were pretty high, so I can highly recommend it. So that's it for this video, thank you for watching, I hope that you liked this video and that you have found it to be useful. Stay tuned for more videos and maybe consider subscribing if you don't want to miss my future content. I appreciate your feedback in form of thumbs up or thumbs down. If you would like to ask anything or share your opinion, please do so in the comment section, and see you next time.